So the outside edge is parallel, trying to extend through the little toes. I have to tell myself not to sort of do that to check, but to sort of almost like going from behind so that I don't lean forwards. Feel it as the heels squeezing out a little bit away from each other, loosening across the sacrum. So the tension that we're tackling now is deep tension. So tension that instituted so that we could develop the mind that we have, so that we could develop the clever, noisy mind. So for this to be going absent and thinking to itself, the body needs to become tense. Even just to simply use language, the body has to become tense. In the days when I used to sleep with women a long time ago, it was always striking how, you know, you're sort of lying there in each other's arms, and as soon as the other person starts to even formulate words in their head, you can feel that tightening inside their body like an anxiety. Because the problem with words is they never really say what we want them to say. So there's a sense that whenever we use words, we're always lying. A deep silence, that's what we're after. We're just trying to bring the active mind, the front brain, the left brain, the head brain, the head mind, whatever you want to call it. We just want to bring that down and enclose it within a confined space. And then the other mind will open out. So that's the function of riding horse posture, really. So within my ward off, I am contained. And then what's outside that ward off can fill up with my big mind. So there's a sense that your big mind issues behind, out of the centers, the three centers. So the Min Meng, the back heart, and the back of the brain here. But really all the way down the spine. The Min Meng is sort of gushing, it's sort of flowing outwards and around. And that is just, it's that really that's driving your heels apart. So I find Thomas Keating's description useful, where he compares the small mind to like the boats in the marina. So you go down to the marina, there's one in Herzliya, and it's full of these beautiful yachts. And yet there's this sea or ocean that's continuous, that surrounds each one. And the deeper down you get inside it, the more you leave those boats behind. So we're just trying to get into the ocean of the mind, really. This absolute continuity and extension. So here, all of my boats are inside my ward off. And I just want to be with this flowing continuum that's oozing out of my back. So let's start turning, but turning. So just feeling as I turn to the left, I take my small mind with me, and that allows energy to flow out of this side of my body, especially this side of my sacrum. I'm sort of bringing the weight into this leg. So it's very similar to the full and empty. So let's just try this for a moment. So this is just our full and empty exercise, but done with the feet parallel rather than from bow and arrow. So as I come into this leg, it's filling up with the ground. So, and then this one can empty. So I want to feel that emptying, not just as the ground that was within the leg flowing out, but of something of me that's oozing from my sacroiliac, from the side of my sacrum, down the leg. So my small mind is with the filling, and my big mind is with the emptying. So my small mind is responsible for turning me. It's turning me towards this leg. So what we want is for it to switch, for it to start to become the big mind that's actually involved in the action, that's actually instigating the action. So what I want to do is feel this like limb of energy that's come out of my sacrum here, catching the ground and just reeling me round. And just allow the small mind just to be quiet and on the lookout in a way. So something has come out of here, catches the ground and just tugs, and I just come round. The big mind is soft. it's energy, so it's just soft. And the small mind is not. So here I just want to come round softly. But there's nothing worse than an affected softness. So the small mind trying to ape softness. So here I just have to make sure it's my back. Something has come out to my back and is tugging me around, and I'm just rolling into this soft energy. And then just bring it up into the heart. So now, like a limb of energy coming out of the shoulder. And then I just bring it into the heart. So here, just feel this really sort of tender. So what makes the work internal is the use of the big mind. So I have to quieten down the small mind, otherwise it will run away, it will take me off, it will distract me. So the best way to keep the big mind on it is just to find it so interesting. It's so full of feeling and tenderness and ache. It's raw. It's almost like you're being torn. Remember that phrase of John's? Softness is the dream in every ache to be a better soul. I can never remember if it's that way or the other way. Softness is the ache in every dream to be a better soul, but it doesn't really matter. It's like a yearning. It's a call. You're calling. You're calling the internal. You're calling spirit, but also it's calling you. So your call is a response to its call. And then let's bring it into the head. So now, as though these tentacles are coming out of the back of the head, the occiput region. And so the tentacle comes out of the back of the head and it comes into the front. So where does it come in? Doesn't really matter, but just feel it. Just feel where it wants to come in. bring it back to riding horse. Again, just glance down at your feet, but sort of from behind. And then you have to lean back to look at them rather than leaning forwards. And now let's just trace a figure of 8 around the hips or the feet. And so this is your small mind, your sort of, your analytical, clever mind. So now my mind is here, whereas previously, and the one we've just been working on, my mind was here with the other side, the dark side, if you like, the side I can barely see. Now I'm very much with what I can see. So this is just as important, just for getting the small mind under some control. So just keeping the small mind on what it's meant to be on and not letting it drift off. So the small mind is always following the fullness, and the big mind is following the emptiness. So when we're pushing with a leg, that's more small mind, and when we're pulling with the leg, that's more big mind. So the small mind is vital. It's just become out of control and it's colonized everything. So there's very little of the big mind left for us. So we're just trying to rein it in, just get it under some control and make it do what it's meant to do, which is just look after you, look after the here and now. But the only reason it got out of control in the first place is because with our cleverness, we created environments where we don't need to be fully present. So comfortable environments. So once the small mind is controlled, once it's just doing what it's meant to be doing and not going AWOL, then the two come together, the small mind and the big mind, just act as one mind. We just need to rebalance it. The small mind should be really quite small, surrounded by this soft envelope of energy. And then let's just take it into knocking the gates of light. Feel the return. So as I turn this way, this arm comes out from my Mineng, and I want it to come in because I have turned back to the front. So this is the bit people tend to get wrong. So it's here. There's the strike is as I'm facing front. So I turn this way and then I pull it back. Turn this way, pull it back. So let's just try just the breathing, and then we'll come back to that because it's really the same as this. Pulling into my belly here. Just make sure that your thumb isn't sticking out, that the end of the sacrum and the tail are trying to curve under, and then just let it whip back a little bit. So breathing in here to really increase the internal pressure, and then breathing out here. And just bring the mind into the feet. The feet always want to do what the hands are doing, or vice versa. So here my hands are pushing apart, so my feet are wanting to push apart as well. And here my hands are coming together, and my feet are wanting to come together. We allow that to turn us. So this will bring me back to the front, and this will tend to turn me so that the straightening legs, the pushing a part of the feet, will either bring me up or it will turn me, and I want it not to bring me up, so I really have no choice but to turn. So all of these exercises are simple. They're basically meditations. They're little devices to just reel in the small mind, the thinking mind, stop it thinking, and just sink into the energy, into the movement. The mind is still, but the body is moving. When you're moving, concentrate on the stillness. And when you're still, concentrate on the movement. So my mind is just trying to remain still and quiet in the center of this storm, in the eye of the storm. And when I'm sitting quietly in meditation, then your mind can be with the energy. Feel the feet. So really, this is the toes trying to splay apart. And this is the toes trying to come in even more than they are. And then let's just go back into knocking the gates of life. So it should feel pretty similar. So this is pulling the hands together, and this is letting them separate, pulling them together, letting them separate. And then just back into riding horse. Again, just glance down at the feet. So we root through the heel, but the front of the foot is what's really responsible for moving you. So it's the front of the foot that pulls. So this thing of the toes coming in and out. So let's just get down into like a good deep posture. Just trying to twist the feet on the ground. So now just try to push the heels out. And then try to push the toes out. That will bring the heels in. But we want to get it feeling it's the outward. So now I push the heels out. And then I send the toes out. Feet aren't moving, but they're trying to. And now here my heels, just feel it really opening across it. It'll tend to stick the bum out, so you have to keep a heavy sacrum. And then here, the toes trying to go out, and then toes in and the heels out. And then the heels start coming in, but really it's the toes that try to go out. What we'd like is for this action to come up into the hips. So they liken the hip bones to like two wings coming off the sacrum. So we'd like these hip bones to have a little tiny bit of movement like this. So here, this is trying to bring the two hips in, and then this is pushing them out and bringing the dantian forward. So this tends to bring the dantian in and push the min meng back. And this does the opposite. So this is opening and coming up, and this is closing and sinking down. Okay, so let's bring it back. So again, just looking down at my feet. good meditation, they say the noisy mind is bad, but sinking into a stupor is just as bad. So it's the problem with a quietness that has come about because you settled and congealed. This is the thing with the turning in the Tai Chi. We're just trying to keep it always at least ready to move, even if it's not moving. So just feeling the 2 feet as just being 2 creatures. The 2 sides of your body are 2 separate creatures. And there's another creature in the middle, which is your spine, which is you, really. And so these 2 can play all the time. And you can just shake the waist, like 3 waist stones, 1, 2, 3, to fire your energy out. You're ready to explode, not aggressively, but just with a spark of energy at any moment. So it hasn't ossified. So there's a sense in which we're trying to sort of dissolve the bones, become boneless. You know, there's kung fu, isn't there? They call boneless kung fu. So, you know, when John had the fall, you know, he just tumbled down the stairs and broke 11 bones. So what I suspect is that the work he was doing was just making the bones light. And I remember Nitzan telling me that time he caught very long when he tripped, and he said he was just as light as a feather. So I suspect when you start letting go of the tension that you've had to bring into yourself as a little kid in order to join the society of creatures that have a noisy mind, that tension actually brings the wrong sort of solidity into the body and just makes you stupid, makes you insensitive and a bit of a lump. So there's a sense that there's movement everywhere. Every part of my body has got a little wriggle inside it. And then the more fine-grained that becomes, that's advancement, really. That's just advancing down the path. Eventually you just become all energy. Okay, now let's just try some with the, in a different stance. There's something a bit stupefying about riding horse because it's so double weighted. So as soon as you have 1 foot forwards, then you're no longer double weighted, really, even if your weight is equally distributed. The 2 sides of your body are so different now. And now let's just figure of 8. So we normally do this with the feet parallel, but now just feel it, just really watch it. So one part of you is really getting into it and enjoying it. And another part of you is just watching quietly. It has a vantage which enables it to just see. So that's the quiet mind. So a quiet mind is such a useful tool. It's the beginning, really. They say, you know, all internal or spiritual work starts when the mind stops. So it's a mind that is just always encouraging balance. The thinking mind is trying to change the environment to suit the self. And the quiet mind is just creating a balance within me so that I can fit in with any environment. I don't need to change it. I don't need to make it comfortable for me. The humans have become agents of imbalance. And so our work is just trying to just reverse that. And the big word really is natural. So that's what distinguishes Taoism from Buddhism, really. The Taoists look for the natural way, and they use nature as the model. Buddhism is very much of a civilization. It's very much civilized. So it's divorced from nature in a sense. And if you're divorced from nature, you're also divorced from your own nature. And just feel the heart. So the figure of 8 is very much an instrument of the heart. So as I come up the figure of 8 here, it's like my thymus, my upper heart becomes dominant, my back is rearing back and lifting this point here. And then as I come down, it drops into the lower heart, the deep heart. So the two hearts are sort of oscillating. So you can think of the heart as like a yin-yang symbol, with the thymus and eros, the deep heart, as being the two dots in the yin-yang symbol. In Plato's psychology, there were 3 minds, or the mind is in 3 parts. So thymus, eros, and logos. So the function of the head mind was simply to keep the other 2 in balance. Not let either of them run away with themselves. And now let's just switch the legs. So again, just look at the outside edge and get a sense of it, really. It doesn't really matter where it's pointing, but this one does. Feel the two hands, which is the dominant one, which is the one that you prefer. It tends to be the one that you write with. So if you're right-handed, the right. And so you can just drop it out and just concentrate on the other. So we want to feel this machine as being generated by the action of the two legs, rather than it being an idea that I'm imposing upon my body. My two legs are cooperating and producing this figure of 8. Especially important in the form. Because if you don't get the two legs operating sort of independently in the form, you never really get the waist round to the front and you've got 1 foot forwards. So here my 2 feet are sort of pushing apart. So this is trying to push back and this is trying to push forwards. So this really has to come forwards. Because the energy will want to go in the direction of the back foot. And I want it to come forwards. And feel the figure of 8 around the feet. So here going around this foot, and then here going around this foot. And then let's bring it back to, so again, just try and not tip forwards too much while you're inspecting your feet. And now just the figure of 8 in the foot. So this is similar to the exercise we were doing here, where we were pulling the heels in and then pulling the toes in, or pushing the toes out and pushing the heels out. Here my toes are trying to go out, and now here my heel is trying to go out. So there's a sense that your foot is sort of writhing on the ground, twisting and turning without moving. Toes and heel. And then just a bit with the back foot. So heel, toes. This figure of 8, but just concentrating on these figures of 8 in the feet. So here, this heel is going out, but this one is coming in, and then the opposite. And allow this action to come up into the sacrum. So the sacrum is really working. So there's a sense that a lot of the tension that we bring in so that our minds can think to themselves is in this area here, which is why the hips are so problematic, but especially the sacrum. So there's a sense that we're trying to sort of just break the sacrum up, let it sort of just loosen and crumble, because originally it was 5 vertebrae that had fused together. So like we're trying to get some movement into the sacrum, but it's really intractable. So here I'm really turning my hips, using my feet on the ground. It requires a spirited, elastic tautness, tightness to have come into your body. So it's like elastic, you know, when you pull elastic, it's fighting you. It's trying to pull back in. You're trying to pull it out, but it's soft, it's gentle, but it's real. So it's the same thing here. As I turn this way, something is trying to push me back. You're always working against the resistance. And then the spirit will come up. So it's almost like we're trying to make it more difficult than it really is. And then let's try a bit with the other foot forwards. So again, just look from behind the heel. I gaze from the heel through to the little toe. I gaze from the heel. So first of all, just getting that figure of 8 around the foot. So my toes are trying to squeeze out. And then here they're pulling in. So through from the little toe to the big toe. And then crossing over into the outside edge of the heel and coming back there. So the heel is sort of catching the ground and pulling it. There's a sense here that my heel is scooping the ground, and then that's being distributed around my toes. And then the other foot. Thymus, eros. And then just both together. So just the figure of 8 exercise, but really feeling it in the feet. This is my toes trying to express, and this is my heel digging back and out. Bring it back. So the heels are sort of widening to allow the sacrum to just feel as though it's dropping down a little bit through this structure. And then the feet are going out in order to bring the rising energy up. So in order to strengthen the thymus, because it tends to get a little bit like this. So it's as though the outside is like this, but inside there's this rising column, which you can think of as the spine, but really it's coming up here, just in front of you. So Tai Chi is the art of concealing hardness with softness. So this is my shroud of softness, and within that I have this shining. It's like it's metal, like the way you can shine metal up and it will really be bright. There's a brightness that's rising. And this is like a cloak, like a darkness that you just wrap around yourself. Okay, now let's just try pushing the wall. Remember we did this a few times? So just if you've got a wall that's a little bit firm, so not made out of plasterboard, just lean on it. Allow the heels to come off the ground and the sacrum to drop. So what we want is to feel as though I'm sinking, and that is tending to push the wall upwards with my hands. If I just lean like this, then it will be down into the wall. So I want to let my sacrum drift down and forwards and feel as though I'm trying to push the wall upwards. You don't have to work very hard. You just need to get into the right position. And just shifting the weight slightly. So maybe a slight figure of 8 around the feet, just to keep it loose. So in my classes, we do this with each other. So we're leaning on each other. And you just want to get it to the point where you start shaking. The body starts shaking. And then you can just work it. You can use just taking the hands off and bringing them back on one at a time, obviously, or just pacing with the feet. Almost like you're trying to sort of drive through the wall, but all the time with this sense that the legs are driving down into the ground in order to push the hands upwards. So it doesn't take long for the arms to get tired. And when they do, just bring the forearms onto the wall. So as I come into my left foot, that whole left side of my body is strong. But I want the feeling that the energy, which is, it's never strong, it's so light and ephemeral, that's come up into the other side of the body. So here I sink into my right foot, so my right elbow on the wall is really strong. So I'm supporting myself with my right side, but the energy is expressing in the left side. And then let's just roll it round. So here, just feel the sacrum on the wall. Turning the waist just to rock from side to side, like you're giving your sacrum a bit of a massage. And just trying to get it to really widen and flatten. So the upper back is off the wall slightly in order to really accentuate the sacrum. So I'm turning this way into this leg, rocking onto the right side of my sacrum. And that is just allowing the looseness to be in this side of the body. So we want to feel the difference between the strength and the energy. So the strength is coming from the fullness, and the energy is coming from the emptiness. And you can use as much force or as little as you like. It depends how you feel. They're nice, these exercises, because it's obvious that the wall isn't going to move. And so you very much get the sense that the work is working on your body. So normally if we push something, we push it in order to make it move. Whereas here we're pushing the thing in order to get movement into our own body. So you have to be able to do that. Otherwise, when you try to move the other person, it will just be forceful. So whatever I want to happen to the other person, I must be prepared for it to happen to me. Otherwise, it won't be energy. It will just be force against force. Now let's just bring it into attention posture. Sense that the toes are pointing forwards, but from the back, so that you don't have to look down into the toe and then look at my heel. So the heels drifting apart, just loosening my grip on my sacrum. So this being the center of the body, this is the place we tend to want to have most control over, so that we can start thinking to ourselves. This is where we work on to try and loosen it up. And it's very difficult. So internal work, spiritual work, is all about reducing the ego, reducing the self. And so it doesn't feel good, especially afterwards. You can feel fraught and irritable and tender and weak. But that's just the way it is. Because really what you're doing is just trying to reduce you, what you conceive of as you. So we're just trying to expose the bigger aspects of ourselves. So the work, it's very much ethical. So next year in Thai school, they had a list of subjects that they could choose from. And she's chosen to study ethics, which I thought was a good choice. So what does it mean to be ethical? Especially nowadays, where basically everything that is good for humankind is bad for the planet. So how do we reconceive our ethics? How do we broaden the picture? So softness and ruthlessness, the two qualities we work on to combat the ego. Because the ego is basically constituted of your resentments and your self-pity. So ruthlessness cuts through the self-pity. So we're ruthless with ourselves. We're kind to others, but we're ruthless to ourselves. So we impose discipline. And then the resentments are really just anger at the world. And it can be very subtle. Any expectation of the world, of someone in the world, any expectation is the product of resentment. And so we just cut through that by just being soft. Just be soft with everything. Doesn't mean you can't be spirited. You know, so every now and then there'll be a flash of anger and something will whip out of you. But that's just natural. Like John used to say with the Irish, the most spirited people on the planet, but also one of the softest.